Hey, what's up everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so Lakers, center position. What are we gonna do? Well, I was listening to Dan the Lakers fan this morning and somebody suggested that we use Bamba and maybe some other form of salary and going to get Jonas Valanciunas out of New Orleans. He may be available from what I understand. That doesn't seem like the worst idea. The easiest salary match is actually Vando and Bamba because he's at 14 on a 2-year deal, which is a really good contract, which means they're going to want something more than that for it. Likely one of these picks or something like that, some player that we want to keep. But it's one of those situations where Jonas Valanciunas is the type of player, the type of size. He's 31 years of age, so you don't really know if he's going to be falling off a cliff soon. Sometimes big men do at that age. Sometimes they don't. But he's one of those guys who's been an all-star in this league. And what I like about him is that he's huge. Not only tall as 7 feet tall, but you know, he's a good, what, 260, something like that, 270. I mean, this dude is huge. So in going up against Jokic, you're going to need a player like that to bang with him and match his size, or otherwise, well, we saw it when it doesn't work. So Anthony Davis is going to do what he does, but I'd rather Anthony Davis be on the weak side as it pertains to Jokic a lot of the time, so we can basically kind of close into him and be disruptive, and we can not have him banging around and taking so much punishment. Let Jonas take on some of that. So that may be a good decision for the Lakers to try to trade for him. There are other ways of doing it than giving up Vando. I'm just saying that's the easiest way to do it, with Vando signing on for $4 million and Bamba being at 10. You know, you would have to add another player on their end, put, you know, Beasley in that situation. But see, here's the thing about giving Beasley to the Pelicans. They already got Hawkins. You got to be very careful about what pieces you send where, because you can end up giving a team exactly what they need to win a championship. I'm not saying they're going to want to keep Beasley at $16 million, because that may not be what's best for them. But nevertheless, when you put Hawkins and Beasley on the same team, you understand what type of weapons you're giving the New Orleans Pelicans. So that's something I'm thinking about as well. But you can match that with Garrett Temple's contract or Dyson Daniels' contract. And there are other pieces you can also put together that are on $1 million contracts on both teams to try to make it make sense if you want to do something else. But you know, I mean, these are the type of things you have to do when you consider the type of sizes coming into the league right now. You know, you're going to have to deal with these guys. So it's not about whether or not you want to go small or not. They're just going to be too many big players on the floor to even have a chance in a lot of these situations without having the center position solidified properly. I don't know that Jonas Valanciunas is the answer, but I know you're not going to find players as big as him all over very often. They're not around. So he's a high-level player that can really stretch the floor as well, which is an attribute I think the Lakers are looking for. And when you consider what's going to be there for you in regards to Brook Lopez being the piece that we've kind of been targeting, I think he's going to have other suitors for the same reason. So, you know, it's a chance the Lakers can go after him, but you may have to overpay. And at 36 years of age, I think he is, that may not be the greatest idea. May not. So I don't know if that's the answer there. But Jonas Valanciunas, trading for him may be possible. And we've got to see what the price tag is over there on that player. It may not just be as simple as what it is we're trying to do. And of course, we know other teams are going to want to make trades for some big men as well. So you're definitely going to have competition. So that's what there is to say at the moment. No rumor, just an idea. You know what I mean? I haven't heard anything that would otherwise link the Lakers to this player. But nevertheless, I think when it really comes down to it, we start brainstorming what ideas we can come up with that can ultimately put ourselves in a position to have that type of piece in place to assist Anthony Davis and the big men. Also, Jackson Hayes, also a free agent. He was on a contract that if he were still with the Pelicans, restricted or somehow still in place, could have made that a very easy swap for him. I think it's him, Beasley, or rather, of course, Bamba, Beasley, and of course himself. And then you would be taking back what else would be coming with the trade. So that's how that goes. I don't know if you could find a way to make that happen, because that makes a lot of sense, putting him next to Jonas and bringing them both to the Lakers, because that's a lot of size. But you don't want to sign a trade with Jackson Hayes, because then, from what I understand, that triggers the hard cap automatically if you're trading for a player with that on tab. So you try to stay away from that if at all possible. You could sign him outright just the same, but to make the salaries match, it would have been very convenient. So that's kind of how I'm looking at that. Nothing there really to see. But we do want to see about signing a big man. And I think Jackson Hayes, at his age, where he was drafted several years back, just about what his piece is ultimately about, which is rim protection from the weak side, rebounding, athleticism, dunking the ball, lob threat. I think that that's a very solid piece to bring in with considerable upside, probably not too expensive. And when I look at the free agent pool of centers, he may be the one that I think may be the most valuable for a team that's looking for assets. And so while you can pick and plug with players like Plumlee, of whom I think is a pretty solid player when you're thinking about overall continuity, but his shooting deficiencies, particularly from the free throw line and from behind the arc, could be a little frustrating for what it is we're trying to do. Not only that, but I don't think he's very good defensively as of yet anymore. He's aged some, so we're in a space where I don't know how much he's going to be giving you. Pretty productive player, but ultimately just not really contributing to your defense at this point, I don't believe. So that's not really the piece for me. As I said, Brook Lopez, I think he's going to get a little more than I wanted to pay him right now, because he's coming off a really good year. So that's my only concern about Brook Lopez. I think he can actually get some good money. And maybe he opts not to do that, to get a championship, since he's older now. Obviously, he already has a ring with the Bucks, but winning is what it's about. I think he's been paid many times over in the past. So I don't know what his priority would be in this regard, but considering he's near the tail end, sometimes guys just like to cash out on that NBA money at the end. So if he, coming off a good season, that's probably the reward. So looking forward as well, other players on the situation, nothing that really stood out to me that made me say this is a good asset for the Lakers. I've heard Robin Lopez's name. He's his twin brother, so they're both the same age. They're both 36 years of age. And with Robin, you're looking at him to be a defensive player and somebody who has even more so limited game than Brook. So at that age, it really doesn't make any sense to bring him in at this point. I don't think he has anything left to give you. You know what I mean? It's just one of those situations where you just got to respect that you got other players you got to find in other areas that can be more valuable for you. And you got to keep looking. That's how I look at stuff like that. You know what I mean? Now, if he had the ability to stretch the floor, or if he was still youthful and all of that, I'd want to bring him in. But, the reason I'm bringing his brother in is because he's extraordinary blocking shots and hitting shots from behind the arc. And he's rather clutch doing so. And so that's why I want him on the team. But, his brother at the same age? Nah. I don't think he's an NBA player at this point. There are some other things we need to look at, though. There are other teams that I look around and say they have centers that we need to possibly study on and maybe make a trade for. Young players on the back of certain benches that have long been dumped aside as players that don't have any talent, or have had the game passed them by. Centers that can ultimately come in and maybe develop into something here. Those are the type of guys that I think the Lakers need to just bring them in, put them in the G League situation, and see if they can start making some noise, as to which we can call them up and slide them in at the center position, because it looks like we're going to be at a disadvantage at that position, or have to overpay for somebody that we probably wouldn't be wise for overpaying. So that's what I'm thinking. Center by committee, unfortunately. AD is going to have to play it, and we'll keep our ear to the street for a trade throughout the course of the season. That would be my plan. Unfortunately, I hate that plan, but I'd rather it than us overpaying somebody at the center position. I just don't think that's really the best thing to do when the center position is a bit shaky. The market is shaky, and there's a chance people are going to overprice centers this season, no different than they overpriced shooters about 4 years ago. And we saw how those contracts went. Remember Mozgov? If I were the Lakers, I would really study the situation. Not to say that I want to go in without size, because you guys know how I feel about that. You know how I feel about that. Last year we went through an entire thing about how important and responsible it is to have a big man on this team. So we don't want to disrespect that. But you also don't want to disrespect your other circumstances as well, as it pertains to over capping yourself on players that you're ultimately not going to use. And that is my biggest concern, and we've talked about this a little bit last night. I'm just not sure that we don't find ourselves paying for a center that Darvin ultimately does not play very much. Now, you still want to have those reinforcements for the same reasons, just to make it all make sense when you go up against certain teams. You don't have young players taking on too much punishment. But if the guy's not going to be playing much, we do have to respect that. If the guy's going to be injured a lot, and we're just picking him up because we need a center and he's not going to be available anyway, what's the point? You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So we got to make sure we're making sense with that center position, which is why I'm kind of cool on the old center guys, because it's just a matter of time before they go down, and you can't trade them for nothing. And so you guys know I'm big on that. If I'm going to give you cap space, I need to be able to trade you for something if I need to. If you are a dead asset for my team who doesn't have all its picks, that's a no-go. It's a no-go, I'm telling you, because at the end of the day, if things go wrong, you're going to want to trade stuff, and you're going to need valuable stuff in order to make that happen. And if you don't have it, you can look around and see these teams that can't get better. You don't want to be that. You do not want the Lakers to be that, especially when it's under your control that you don't be. So if it costs you a few wins, I respect that, because you don't necessarily have a championship team anyway. But you definitely want to make sure that all of your assets make absolute sense, or otherwise you are going to not be very pleased with how your team looks. That's how it really goes. And so I know that over the long term, the Lakers have their eyes on picking up young assets. I wouldn't have it any other way, as you guys know. I like the position we are in at this point, trying to do our very best to just, put players around LeBron James that fit him, and put players around all of the, other young players that would otherwise complement them. It's all a good looking plan to me. But we do need to understand a few things. Of course, we talk about LeBron James and our core every day. We know how I feel about that situation. It's not that I'm against the core in any way. I like them. We just building old. We're building old, and you just have to respect the rest of the field and how youthful it is, and all of that has been spoken on a lot. Now we're walking into a space where size is everything. Size and shooting ability and shot making is everything. And I think we have some of the players on our team that can do that. And we have a young point guard who's going to need to develop properly. He's got to play the point guard position, and we have other players that are going to want to play the point guard position. Now, here's the thing. I was listening to someone speak about Jalen Hood-Schifino and how much he had the ball in his hands, and we talked about this as well with Trayce Jackson-Davis and how much repetition they had running the pick and roll. Is Jalen Hood-Schifino going to be the starting point guard? Because if so, I don't know if he's going to have the ball in his hands enough with LeBron James being the guy that he is. Obviously holding the ball in his situation and also making plays for others, shooting the ball as he does. Are we going to have Bron playing more so off the ball so Jalen can get some looks? If we're re-signing D'Angelo Russell, is he the starting point guard? And how many point guard options will be available? How much will Austin Reeves be able to run that point? Or are we, in fact, letting Austin Reeves leave after all? You know what I mean? That's the kind of thing I'm wondering about. It's just one of those things where it's like they extended the qualifying offer. I know he's going to go out and get a offer sheet. I expect him to, ultimately, the Lakers to match that. That's what I expect. But I've expected things, and things have gone left sometimes. And you just don't really know sometimes what will actually take place. Rui Hachimura, I don't know what his market looks like. But I do know that he showed a great deal of efficiency in the playoffs and shown himself to be a fantastic on-ball defender with huge size. Very, very heavy dude that can match up with a lot of people. I think what it really comes down to, you definitely want to find yourself in a situation where you keep both of those players if you're the LA Lakers, but you also assess what your options are in regards to replacing them, upgrading them, and all of these different things. You got to assess the whole thing. because at the end of the day, if you overpay for any of these guys, you're stuck with them. And maybe that's not a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe maybe it's indifferent. But the point is, as the field continues to get an influx of more young players, it will change and ultimately fluctuate the value of the players you're signing. We're seeing that as the draft has taken place. So we got to understand that that's going to continue to be the situation as these players, continue to go forward in these contracts over the years. So Rui Hachimura may be $100 million valuable today, but like 8 more Cam Whitmores come into the league, and suddenly he's not as valuable. You see what I'm saying? And you're stuck with him at a higher price. And that's what I'm trying to convey. So we need to study all of that, consider all of that as we're signing our players, and just make sure that they're being showcased properly with the roles that we give them. And that's not within our control. That's within Darvin. So we just got to move forward and make sure that we bring in the right players that can ultimately do the right things for us, and not overpaying the guys that we appreciate very much, but putting them in a position to not have the right teammates because we've overpaid them, that kind of thing. So that's my thing, man. I want to see us do this correctly. I like that we got Vando at $4 million. That's going to be fantastic for us. And of course, the young players that we got in the draft, we think can really be impactful early on in some cases. I don't expect that they come out the gate and be Rookie of the Year candidates necessarily, but I would like to see that they be helpful bench unit players as the season progresses. Maybe even have a couple starting roles when guys are out. But with Jalen Hood-Schifino, I return back to the question: are we starting the guy, or are we going to bring him off the bench? Because I want him to have the point guard to himself to develop properly. I would rather see him coming off the bench early on, maybe in the first half of the season, have it planned that you strictly give him certain roles with certain units, and just allow for him to kind of explore who else he can be as well as the point guard. Because at the end of the day, it's 6'5". I want to see him at the 2. I'm not saying that I want him to play the 2 all the time. I'm just saying with his height, there's so much more we can do with him as a playmaker and the type of player that he is as a guy that can ultimately create things from the mid-range for himself. I just think that can be a 2 guards gift as well. Also, that gives me another idea. I know we were talking about free agents here. Dante DiVincenzo was mentioned as a free agent. Obviously, I'd expect he'd be way overpriced for us. But depending on where he goes, he could really shake some things up. I think he's a very serious 2 guard, and at the right price, he can send a contender into a different level. I really believe that right now. He's rounding into form on both sides of the floor, and playing with the Warriors, I just think that's a good experience. I don't know if he'll probably return there or not. Since they're a couple guards down, they may want to bring him back. I can totally see that being the case, but think about Sacramento, Milwaukee, places that he's already been. I'm sure they would love to bring him back. So that's just something I'm thinking about. And just a quick nugget. I heard something about the Clippers being linked to the Portland Trailblazers in regards to Scoot Henderson. And that is what I suggested to them before the draft even started. Y'all watch my Clipper video, whatever I said in front of their building as I was walking in front of that building, was basically telling them that I think they need to trade Paul George for Scoot Henderson. That's exactly what I was saying. And it makes all the sense in the world. When you look at the building that they're putting together, it's really state-of-the-art. They're really putting together something good, and you want a new, fresh team in there, and you want to trade those guys while it still makes sense to do so. Because once they start losing value, it's a no-go. So this makes sense to me. Scoot Henderson is the perfect player to start this process. You think about guys you want to see who can put, guys in positions to really be better, make them better. You can set them up. Obviously, his athleticism, his genetics going to allow for you to expect for him to be able to do things on the floor that only few can do. And I just think that's the type of player you want to start this situation with. And if it goes left, then you gave it a shot with a fantastic prospect in a year where historic prospects were coming into the league. And so that doesn't hurt for the Los Angeles Clippers to start over with a player like Scoot Henderson. And if they could pull that off, I think it'd be good for him. Also, I think Portland would have loved to have gotten Brandon Miller. And I think Brandon Miller made it very clear that his GOAT is Paul George, and I think they're comparable. The point is you want that piece to be able to hit shots next to Dame Lillard And I really like Dame Lillard, Paul George next to one another. I really do. Paul George is the right defender, especially if they could re-sign Jeremy Grant. Obviously, they got Shaedon Sharpe in place. Paul George can help mentor him. I really like that. So all of that looks great to me, honestly. I think I like Portland a lot if Paul George goes up there. I don't know how much of that they'll be able to retain. If I'm the Clippers, I probably want Shaedon Sharpe, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that if I'm getting Scoot Henderson. But that is Paul George. At the end of the day, we know his contract's something else. I don't know how you match those salaries. I don't think it really even matters. Just to make Paul George and Scoot Henderson Clippers, I'm pretty sure the Clippers will be happy to put whatever they have to do, in the mix to make that happen. Or Portland, vice versa, rather. So, what would that be? Well, honestly, if I'm the Clippers, I want Scoot Henderson and probably Shaedon Sharpe. His contract's a rookie contract, but those are the things I want. Maybe taking a look at their big center. Their center, what's his name? Can't think of his name, but I'm thinking his contract probably matches their Nurkic, possibly Nasir Little. I'm looking, if I'm the Clippers, maybe getting some more wings, since that's what I've already had, and my wings have somewhat aged. And I've done deals with the Portland Trailblazers in the past. If I'm the Clippers, that's the thing. The Norman Powell trade, Covington, those guys came from there, so I could totally see them teams doing more deals with one another going forward, since they've been friendly in the past. So that makes a lot of sense too. I wouldn't be surprised if the Clippers and the Portland Trailblazers do a deal for Scoot Henderson. I wouldn't be surprised if the Portland Trailblazers and the LA Clippers did a deal for Dame Lillard. Whichever one ends up actually being traded. And I say that because if I'm Portland, this Dame decision is a bad one. Doing this for Dame, we talk about it every day. No, I'm probably not trading Scoot Henderson. I'm probably going to roll the dice with Scoot Henderson, and I'm going to let Dame ride off into the sunset in Los Angeles. I don't know if he wants to play for the Clippers. I probably wouldn't if I'm Dame Lillard. But, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if his spot on the Lakers even exists, and I don't know if he wants to leave this area. He's from the Oakland side of things, and maybe Sacramento's closed off too since De'Aaron Fox in place. I don't know if he wants to move to the other side of the country like the rest of the country wants him to do, since he's been in Portland this whole time. So that's something I'm thinking about. But at the end of the day, the word is Scoot, and I think the Clippers would probably be wise to bring in Scoot, more so for what they're trying to do going forward with the new building. But Dame would be an incredible draw. You know what I mean? I think he's a bigger name than what they have right now with respect to Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi is just never there. He's just never there. It's not that his name ain't big. It's just that he's never available. That's why I wouldn't put him in this trade, because I don't think he holds that type of value. I think Paul George actually does. But if I'm them, the Portland Trailblazers, and you'd say, hey, would you take Kawhi Leonard for Scoot Henderson? I'm gonna say nah, because Kawhi Leonard ain't gonna play but like 30 games. And that's it. So I'm not doing that. But Paul George, I'm more likely to say, yeah, I like Paul George over the next several years, as somebody who's going to age pretty well, being able to hit jump shots and ultimately rebound the ball a lot. You can put him at the 4 spot as he ages, gets a little heavier. His game is still going to be able to do the things that he does right now, just not at the same level. And he's refined. If he takes care of his body and gets healthy, like actually healthy, you know what he can do. You know what his limitations are, particularly in the clutch and the playoffs, stuff like that. He tends not to be the guy you want to go to. But throughout the course of the season, to get yourself a lot of wins, to put yourself in a position to be a contender, a team like Portland, yeah, that's for sure a good situation, because you got Dame there to hit all the big shots. You got Dame to be the ice-cold guy. You ain't asking Paul George to do any of that. You're asking Paul George to be his number 2 in this situation offensively with Shaedon Sharpe, who should still be on your team. I'm not giving him up. He should still be on your team, being able to develop into that player as well. So you're not asking Paul George to be Paul George. You're asking Paul George to be a fantastic rebounder, defender, and shot maker, throughout the course of the regular season. And for that, he should be able to do that, especially with a guy like Jeremy Grant next to him. If you still have him on tab, you probably have to give him to the Clippers in regards to the Cavs. I see that possibly being a thing. And that might be a hell of a price tag, to be honest with you. Paul George, I don't know if you want to do that if I'm the Clippers. I mean, if I'm Portland, giving up Jeremy Grant in that trade, I don't know if that really makes much sense for me. But nevertheless, if I can do that without putting him in there, it does. And I don't know if the Clippers do that. So these are different things. I don't know if the Clippers would take on Nurkic. Obviously, Nurkic and Zubac, I don't know about that. But considering the size needed and various different things, might make sense. Plus, I see Nurkic and Zubac they both can be bench players at this point. So whichever one starts over one another, it really doesn't matter to me. Someone could usurp the other one way or another. But I wouldn't necessarily put them together in most situations. In this one, maybe not too. Maybe not. Maybe that's an overreaction to Jokic to a degree. You can't put them both on the floor at the same time anyway. So whatever the case may be, the point is you're trying to match those salaries. And I'm pretty sure that Portland probably want to keep their center for the same reason. So, it's a lot of different things they could do, but giving up Jeremy Grant in this situation makes the Clippers really, really strong if you're giving up Scoot Henderson as well. I don't know if you swap guards. I look at the situation and say maybe the Clippers are looking to move on from Anthony Simons, but that would be a weird spot to send Anthony Simons to where you're sending Scoot, because that's kind of what the problem is, right? In theory. But I don't know if that's the case. They probably can play in the backcourt together. It's just it's probably not the right running mate for Scoot, that kind of thing. And he'd probably be best playing the point guard too in most situations. But then again, when it comes down to it, can he guard guys like Scoot? And the answer is probably no. Simon's a very talented dude, but if he's going to be your starting point guard, you better have somebody strong next to him defensively. And so these are the type of things that you have to consider when trading for him. And what his contract is at $100 million. But he's super talented nevertheless. You want the ball in his hands because he's an amazing shot maker and he can set people up pretty good. So that's really what it is with Anthony Simons. I think the Clippers would be wise to consider what his contract can do for them. Maybe if not acquiring it, then in trade. Who knows? But bringing in Scoot Henderson should be the priority in my mind. I wish I had these numbers matched up in my head, but I didn't do that. Unfortunately, as you can see. But nevertheless, this is something that would cross my mind if I'm the Clippers at this point. If I'm trying to trade for Scoot Henderson, if I'm moving Paul George, can I pull Jeremy Grant into that situation? I would try. But if not him, then Shaedon Sharpe. And I ain't giving up Shaedon Sharpe if I'm Portland. And so this becomes a situation where I ask Dame, is it important that they do give up both of these kids? Or is it that you just want the one that's playing your position gone? What is it that you would prefer? That would be what I want to know if I'm Portland, if I'm going to do this for him. Because if you're asking me to give up both of those kids, that's going to be very difficult for me to convince myself to do. One, yes. Two, Nah, bro, especially when that one don't play your position. We want Shaedon Sharpe. And when I say we, I mean the field. All teams. So if you don't, I don't think it's going to be hard for you to get a good return for him. But giving him up and Scoot Henderson at the same time, that's the anti-NBA right now. That's what you don't do. The market would not be kind to you in doing that, I don't believe. Good return, but you're not going to be seen as a favorable trade person, I don't believe, Portland. So that's something I'm thinking about. I don't know what their plan would be. They could make themselves a very good team if they do the right thing in regards to a trade with those two players involved. I don't know if the Clippers have the right return. That's also another thing to think about. But Paul George is a piece that I think would fit very well with Dame Lillard in the twilight of their careers. I think they could do some good things if their pieces are together, especially if Jeremy Grant's on that team as well. Yeah, that's a pretty solid playoff team. Pretty solid. I don't know if they can win a championship, but I think they can at least be one in the top 8. And that's not really what you're aiming for. You want to be a champion. You know what I mean? That's the point. But I just don't know that Portland's in a position to even build one. Now with Dame Lillard's contract being as it is, and that's what I was talking about last night as well. It's like, at that price, I don't even know if I can build a champ around that. I don't think so. But going forward is an entirely different conversation. And I think putting Paul George next to him, Jeremy Grant, that's pretty much going for it. If you're Portland, you're giving yourself a shot. You're about as good as Phoenix is going to be, with a better bench probably. So, I don't know. That if they float your boat, You know, floats mine for you. I like the look. It's just, you know, get back Norman Powell maybe, right? That might be a good decision for Portland. Bring back Norman Powell if you're going to let go of Anthony Simons. Like I said, swapping guards, but it's just, you know, at the end of the day, if I'm giving up Scoot Henderson, I don't think there's a good trade in that regard. There's no such thing. There's no such thing because I don't know what he's going to be, and his ceiling is superstar. That's like giving up, you know, Chris Paul day one. Like, I don't know why I would do that for any reason. And I'm looking at the old guy, and it's like, have we not seen history before? Have you ever seen any history at all? Like, the old guy leaves. Like, you have him and he's gone. And so it's like, if you're going to do everything for him, are you ready for him being gone? And are you okay with what you're giving up in that event? And if the answer is yes, then it's like, all right, well, make sure you get a good return. Just make sure you get a good return for these kids. While his value's high, that's all I can say to you. You know? Because maybe you got it right. If he ends up not being what it is you expect him to be, then trading him was a good idea. We've seen so many players come along that just weren't that. We thought they would be, but they fizzled out for whatever reason. And so it probably was a good idea trading them, you know? You look at the Cleveland Cavaliers when they traded Wiggins. Yeah, Wiggins turned into what he is now, but it took a long time for that to happen. And the player they traded away couldn't really help him like Kevin Love did. It was the right decision. Didn't necessarily look that way to me. It's kind of the same thing. So maybe it works out, but, you know, Dame ain't prime Bron. You understand what I'm saying? Dame ain't prime Bron. This is not that's not who that is. So if you're gonna trade away first overall pick type guys, you better make sure the guy that you're doing that for can lead you to the promised land. And Dame is a hell of a shot maker. He's been one of the most clutch players to ever play the game. But that has not led to him a whole lot at all. And I don't think it's going to lead to a whole lot as he's aging. Trying to build around him, I just don't see it, man. I don't see it at all. I don't see it for the team that's trading for him either. To be honest with you, I hate to be that guy too, but it's like, yo, y'all bringing in that contract, it's going to be just as hard for y'all to build around it as it is for Portland. It is, man. That thing is a poison pill. Nah. God bless him. He's earned every penny by way of the standards that it takes to make that type portion of the cap. But that portion of the cap, that is not how you need to be paying these dudes. You got to give them some type of different money that don't come out of the cap. I keep saying that. They got to find another way, man, because this takes away from the ability to build the dream. You can't build the dream, yo. You don't have it. You got to get lucky. And to be honest with you, they did. They got Shaedon Sharpe and they got Scoot Henderson, and now they're trying to give them away because they don't necessarily fit the old guy. It's like, nah, no. Don't you see what just happened? You got lucky. You got the player. All you got to do is develop him. And it's like, no, we want to do this around Dame. It's like, okay, then that's how you stay bad. That's why you ain't had a championship in 30 years, because you do stuff like this. Don't do this. This time you don't do it. This time you say, thank you, Dame Lillard, for all you've done for us. And we ain't going to disrespect none of that. We thank you for it. But now we got to go forward with the player that fell into our lap and just give it a shot. And if it doesn't work out, you know what we gave up on? The old guy. You know who did that? Toronto did. You know how it turned out? They got a championship. They gave up on the old guy. Who's the old guy? DeMar DeRozan. Now, DeMar DeRozan ain't old because he's still very good. Before them, they had him for a long time. They got as far as they could go. He was the man, and they never quite got over the hump. Now, they could have let him retire there, and they could have kept on that trajectory. Or they could have moved on from him, got themselves what ultimately got them the championship, and move on. Now, I'm not saying Scoot Henderson is Kawhi Leonard. I'm not saying that. But for you, should represent the same thing in a different way. You know what I mean? The keeping Scoot should represent you acquiring Kawhi Leonard as a Toronto Raptors. Because at the end of the day, going forward with Jordan DeMar DeRozan, which is what Dame would be, doesn't make sense for you. That's what it really comes to. It don't make sense for you. So it may make sense for Dame, but it don't make sense for the Portland Trailblazer organization basketball team. And so that's what it really comes down to. And again, if he doesn't turn out to be the guy, if he's a bust, that's the gamble. That's the gamble. Sometimes you trade away that guy, and it's okay to do so. I don't know. I thought Wiggins was going to be crazy great. I don't know. But this is a situation where, like, I don't know. If you're looking at it the way I'm looking at it, you say some type of old guy who's about to leave the game at that time, maybe T-Mac at that time. It's like, okay, you got Jason Tatum coming in, but you kind of don't want to draft him because you got T-Mac at the end. It's like, are you sure, fam? Like, are you sure? T-Mac been that dude, but are you sure? You're not. Yeah, that's that type of thing. So I don't know, man. Maybe it works out. Maybe it don't. Maybe Portland has it right. Maybe going forward with your legend ultimately gets you the championship and it's all glory. That could be it. That could literally be it. But you know what else could be it? Maybe you just tell Scoot to play the 2 guard, trade Anthony Simons, and just make them play together and see if it works. It probably can, honestly, because I don't think Dame is a player that can't catch and shoot. And I don't think Scoot is a player that can't do something off of the dribble as soon as he catches it. And he's more so of a playmaker than Dame Lillard's ever played with. It's probably the type of player that makes Dame better. Now, I don't know if that actually translates to any defense, but I'd imagine with Scoot's side, he's probably going to be better defender than CJ or Anthony Simons. So I don't really like putting them together because I don't think it gives the ball to Scoot enough. But if I'm Dame, this may be the best chance at me winning the championship playing with this young fella. Why? Because the franchise I'm on just got lucky. Let that not lose anybody's sight. Scoot is not supposed to be on the Portland Trailblazers. They weren't bad enough to be there. That should be Detroit. Okay, let's just be honest. That should be Detroit. So Portland needs to understand how lucky they've gotten. Understand they've gotten a player way better than what they should have received, and not to trade him away just because he doesn't fit with the player they already had. That's not how to assess that asset. What you did was you won the lottery. And in winning the lottery, you got the 2nd overall best prospect in the draft. And so that's what you need to behold if you're the Portland Trailblazers, while you're fawning over the idea of being loyal to a basketball player. Your reputation is not on the line to be loyal to the basketball player. The reputation is on the line to be loyal to your fan base and win a dang championship. And how you do that is to acquire the best talent, develop it properly, and assess it accordingly, bringing the right stuff to it. And I'm telling you, if you do that, that's how you get to be as great as all these San Antonios, Lakers, Bostons, and all these other teams. Golden State. You got to get it right. You got to get it right. Portland, you cannot make mistakes doing stuff for the matters of the heart and lose your entire franchise over decisions that ultimately are squalor before they even start. You cannot build a champion. Someone needs to tell you this right now. You cannot build a champion. Portland, you can't build one. No one's going to trade you the stuff that's going to make you good enough to be Jokic. It's not happening. Please understand this. Somebody need to tell Dame Lillard the same thing, bro. They're not going to build no champion around you right now like that. The best way you're going to be a champion is to make sure that kid, him, Scoot, is as good as you are. That's where you do it. And as you age, you give him the damn keys. That's how you do it. Get out the way and give him the ball and make sure he's as good as you. If you teach him everything you know and you allow yourself to play off his playmaking, you're about as good as you're going to be anywhere you go. Because that's exactly how you get as good as you need to be. You let him lead the show. And you adjust your game. That's all the greats do. That's how the greats do it. How did Dwayne Wade win? That's how he did. That's exactly how Dwayne Wade won. That's what I tell Dame Lillard, because otherwise, where are you going? With your contract, the best thing you can ask for is a player on a rookie contract who can do as much as you can do. Everybody you're trying to go to is eating up half the damn cap. How can you get good enough? This is how you get good enough, by keeping guys like him in the driver's seat as good as they need to be while you're eating up so much of the cap. But it doesn't really reflect because he's doing so damn much. Shaedon Sharpe, Scoot Henderson. Problem is you don't fit. It's not a seamless fit because you don't play defense. If Dame Lillard could play some damn defense, this ain't a problem. But because he doesn't play defense, this is a problem. Because he's not a seamless off-ball player. You don't get the most out of him off-ball. And you're asking him to do stuff that he does not do. And you're asking Scoot to do more than he needs to be doing because he's going to have to play at a certain level to keep this guy winning. And that is a bad way to ask a player to develop, even when his talent is Scoot. So all of this is not what's best for Scoot. But it is what's best for Dame. Stay put, play the Dame Lillard role, be his big role, and root him on to be successful. That's the way. That's the way. And trade Shaedon Sharpe for whatever defensive players that help you. Not Shaedon Sharpe. Anthony Simons. Excuse me. Keep Shaedon Sharpe. Do not trade anybody named Sharpe, and trade away Simons' $100 million contract for the pieces you need. You know what I'm saying? That's a place I'd want Cason Wallace to be. In this situation, even though it's a logjam to hell, they need a defensive player. They need a defensive player. That would be ideal. You know, not to say that they need a guard that good, but they need a defensive player. Somebody like, I don't know. I have no idea. But they need one. Because I like Scoot defensively, but I don't love him defensively. He's not exactly, you know, the lockdown guy yet, but I think he can develop into that. So, yeah, that's what I'm looking at, man. I don't think Dame should necessarily want to leave. I don't think he should want Scoot to either. And nobody should want Shaedon Sharpe to go anywhere. Jeremy Grant, I probably want him to stay for certain. And if I'm not, I want to get the best return for him. Yeah. And if I can upgrade Nurkic, that might be okay. Might be okay because he does miss a lot of games. And he's aging. So the likelihood he's going to miss a lot more. So that would be the thing. Yeah, I don't know. OKC, Cason Wallace, that situation I'm looking at, I'm like, man, I wish they would trade that boy. I wish they would either trade him or make a decision on somebody that they'd rather make a decision on. And Lord knows you don't give away Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Not with what he is turning into. God, no. That might be the MVP this season. So you look at the situation and say, okay, or he can miss 40 games, because that's the thing about Shai too. But you know, right now it's just like what you've seen. Like, nah, you can't let go of that guy. He's gonna be something else. Giddey, same thing. J-Dub, same thing. I see 3 future Hall of Famers right there. Call me crazy, but that's exactly what I see. Let those guys play a full career, all of them, with the trajectory they're on from where they're at. All 3 of those are Hall of Famers. I'm not kidding. And you look at Chet Holmgren. If he could stay healthy, he's getting off to a bad start with that Liz Frank. I think that's what they call it, injury. But he's getting off to a bad start with that. But his skill set and what it is he should be able to bring to the table, if all things work out with his health, he's going to be different too. That goes without saying. I think that's easy to see. But he can also get off to an injury-prone type of thing, and then you know we could be looking at something else. So I'm looking at him worried at this point. That's what I am. I'm worried about the young fella. Just don't like that he got that type of injury so soon, knowing he's got to take on the workload that he is in a win-now situation. That's exactly what OKC's about to be. So, yeah, I want them to move on from Cason Wallace because I think Cason Wallace is that type of player. He could, too, be one of them dudes all the way up in the air because of how aggressive he is on both sides of the floor. Basically, he should be able to develop into something like Drew Holiday or something like that. So, if that's what he's going to become, I don't want him playing behind people, man. I really don't. And I would love for OKC to either free up some more guards, the guys that are behind him, so that he can be the main guy off the bench. Shave it down to like 3 or 4 guards. That way you got just some really talented dudes. Or move him. You know, that's what I want to see because he could definitely go to a team and get off to a fantastic start and be a starter. And really, really take his career into a space it's supposed to be. Not necessarily playing behind anyone. So, yeah, that's my intentions in regards to that. I just think it would be virtuous for the OKC Thunder to free up some of those guards because some of these guys have too high a ceiling to be stuck in situations where they're just strictly going to be role players for you. Like, I get it. It makes you a really good team, but that's selfish as hell to do that to them. Just being honest. And that's not the only position that's happening. I look at Utah and that Taylor Hendricks situation. I don't like it. You traded for John Collins, and now you're pushing Taylor Hendricks in a position to where he's probably not going to get any minutes at all. That's not how you start a player that talented. No, I can see taking your time with him, but you better have intentions to make sure that you put him in a position to really be that guy at some point. Because I don't think he's like Giannis, you got to wait 4 or 5 years to develop him. No, I don't think so. He's a prototypical 3-and-D guy that has a lot of size, and I don't like the role that they look like they want to give him going forward. See, if it was a path to that, if some of the guys that they had in front of him were older, it's like, okay, next year he's going to, But you don't see that. John Collins is on an immovable contract that they just got themselves. That's who he's going to have in front of him for the next 3 years. I don't like it. Nobody's trading Markkanen. Not at all. Nobody's trading Kessler. Not at all. So where's Taylor's ceiling on the team? Where is he supposed to? You see what I'm saying? You just get these guys off to a terrible start just to make their teams deep. I hate it. I hate it. It's selfish, and it doesn't take into account what's best for the kids at all. And I think the right thing to do is trade these dudes or to free up the ability for these guys to have opportunities. You had that, but you brought yourself the John Collins contract, and I just think it's the wrong thing to do unless you know you're going to stretch John Collins or find another way to move him to free up that spot for him very soon, basically at the trade deadline. You know what I'm saying? Because this is not how you get a player his reps to develop properly. It's not how you do it. And so I know Danny Ainge knows that, but I also know he's trying to build a champion. So if he wants to have a timeline with John Collins on it, then you got to say goodbye to some kids. Peace out, whoever you just drafted. You know what I mean? Sensabaugh, thank you. Bye. You know what I mean? Keontae George, I'm going to send you somewhere where you can actually get some playing time. You know what I'm saying? Because that's really what it is. If you're going to do the Jordan Clarkson timeline, then do the Jordan Clarkson timeline, but don't have these kids dragged behind them trying to be role players for you guys not developing properly. It's trash. And you still ain't going to be good enough to be Jokic. Facts. So that's just what I see there. I don't like it. I don't like what they're doing to these kids. Charlotte, same thing. What you doing with the guards? What are you going to do with them? You know what I'm saying? We talk about that a lot as well. It's just too many of them with high ceiling. And not on your team, though. Not all playing behind Ball and Rozier. Nah. Move Rozier, if possible. Keep Ball, obviously. Move Bouknight. Or move one of them kids you just drafted. But don't have them all trying to compete for the same position. It's just not the way to play it. You know what I mean? And so that's what I say. I talk about Davion Mitchell over there in Sacramento, too. Same thing. Ceiling capped off by the fact that he's always going to be behind some guards that he can't ever usurp. Never going to step in front of Fox no matter what. And it's just like he was drafted, 7th overall, 6th overall? Come on, man. He's not supposed to be developing like that. So somebody needs to call it out. It just is what it is. A lot of people celebrate these draft picks, and I'm like, okay, but these kids getting off to a trash start and have absolutely no ceiling to what they're supposed to be having. Just none. So that they can be in these small market teams and just be hoarded like the draft picks that they are. No, they ain't draft picks anymore. They're players who need their paths to go right. You know what I'm saying? And as a fan who watches this and wants to see good basketball, it's half the time the best players sitting on the bench because of this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Only for them to be playing vets. Like, man, get out of here. So that's what I have to say about the situation. NBA expansion is the solution. And I know that is underway. It's not something they can snap into thin air. I know they're working on it. And I think we'll see a better field once that happens overall. But for now, you got player overlap and irresponsible hoarding of players and just underdevelopment, complete underdevelopment. And then you see teams that don't have any youngsters, while you see a lot of teams like OKC just hoarding them. It's like, yo, can you trade some of these players to some of these teams so that we can just make sense of all this? Like, Phoenix needs some of those guys. Cleveland needs some of those guys. Clippers need some of those guys. Like, honestly, this would be real. That's what needs to happen for this NBA to look like it's supposed to look. So that when you start to make trades, the trades can actually look good. This is what is missing. This is exactly what is missing. Cason Wallace should be playing for the Wizards. You know what I'm saying? This type of stuff. So that they can all have starting roles, so that they can all raise their value, so they can all be traded for one another, and all these teams can be healthier. I'm telling you, it all connects. It all connects. So that's what I'm here to help you see, man. Different type of NBA mind. My name is BDL44. I thank you all for watching.